Hello, my name is Stephen DiNatale. What I uncovered during this racial test was confronting to me. Going into it, I thought that I would have little to no bias, but to my surprise, it uncovered that I may hold racially based unconscious prejudices. I believe it is my duty as an educator to examine these biases and to consider that these prejudices may be based on preconceived notions of class and culture. I think the first step in addressing this is acknowledging that the results of the test may be true, and even though I am unaware of them, these prejudices may come through in ways that are detrimental to my students. As a teacher, it is my role to be proactive, and to address this, I will ensure that equity is always at the forefront of my mind. A large part of this is truly reflecting on who I am as a person, and understanding that there will be some cultural discontinuity between me, some of my students, and their families, and that I could potentially hold deficit-orientated stereotypes pertaining to minority students. It is paramount that I prevent this from impacting on students' learning by being prepared to teach with inclusive values and in ways that differ from what is promoted as normative within mainstream Australian society. Teaching is inherently political, as schools are vehicles of social reproduction. It is essential that the attitudes and behaviors modeled by educators promote respectful communication and democratic values. I will not allow my discomfort to result in pathologies of silence. Many researchers point out that a teacher's ideology is relayed through their instructional style and the ways in which they interact with their students. Both explicit and implicit bias can have a devastating effect on the way that students perceive themselves. Children from minority or lower socioeconomic classes don't perform at the same level as their peers. In my future classroom, I want students to learn alongside me as I develop a pedagogy of care that focuses on people and their ideas, always emphasizing a transformative rather than prescriptive form of teaching and learning. I aim to do this by rejecting deficit thinking, which Wagstaff and Furuseli refer to as the most important factor in achievement for minority students. I will consciously attempt to avoid differentiating my teaching in a way that is biased and places limitations on the abilities of children from diverse backgrounds. This is because I know that the attitude teachers hold can be one of the greatest influences in young people's lives. It is vital that children can bring their lives into the classroom and feel comfortable doing so. One way I will do this is by using books and resources that every student in the class can identify with. I am also becoming increasingly aware how attitudes can be exceptionally resistive to change, and how the education itself is constrained by a prescriptive curriculum. Paulo Freire claims that the behavior of the oppressed is prescribed, and that this creates a fear to be free. The focus of transformative leadership in schools should be to liberate the learning environment so that the focus becomes the collective interest of the entire class. Reflection is a necessary predecessor to action. One of the things I will be sure to continually reflect upon during my professional development are the dynamics of the student-teacher relationship and how my pedagogy can be continually refined to meet the changing needs of my students. Buber asserted that in the beginning is relation. With this in mind, I will continually focus on my relationship with all my students by contemplating the kinds of barriers that they may face and that I may take for granted. I believe it is important that teachers become co-learners with their students by consistently engaging in dialogue that is moral and presents reality as it really is. Through this, students can become advocates for themselves in a way that is beneficial to them and caters to their individual learning needs. This will assist students in coming to the realization that we are not all the same, that we all have our own strengths, and that there is no normal way of being that they need to conform to. Students will also come to learn that identity is not fixed, which will prevent them from being constrained by their perception of themselves. It is only through a pedagogy of care that trust can be established. To facilitate this, I will form relationships with both students and parents to build rapport and to implement a strengths perspective model. I aim to do this by adopting a humanist approach that acknowledges that we cannot understand facts in isolation, but only in relation to ourselves. Dialogue will be used as what Berbules termed a relational activity aimed at discovering a new understanding. This aims to engage the entire class or school in open dialogue about strengths so that a positive and safe learning environment can be established. Reflecting on and discussing strengths can be used to begin students, parents, and teachers thinking about how they can use their assets to accomplish goals and overcome obstacles. By using a strengths assessment inventory, interventions can be established, allowing students to use their strengths across different contexts. Through collating this data, curriculum modifications can be made that will allow students from diverse backgrounds an equitable opportunity to demonstrate their learning. They will have the chance to form a positive identity from these strengths that is reinforced by their environment. I aim to devise a framework for action with a guiding criteria that is consistent with the principles of the Seller-Marker Statement by advocating that every child in my class receives an equitable chance of learning. When I commence my teaching, I also aim to be cognizant of Article 30 of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which states that every child has the right to use the customs and language of their culture, and Article 12 that states every child has the right to share their views and be heard regarding issues pertaining to their lives. I believe that knowledge emerges through construction and reconstruction by the students themselves using their strengths and varied life experiences to their advantage. Thank you.